Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and I am very excited to sit here with Greig Fraser, cinematographer, Oscar-nominated cinematographer for Dune. And this, when I'm thinking about your resume, actually, it is so varied between, you cross so many genres. You have the Batman coming out right now. You were last Oscar nominated for Lion, very different styles of film, and now Dune with this massive sci-fi epic. When you start a new project in these new genres, do you sort of have to like reinvent how you approach everything? Does it feel like a reinvention each time?
Well, I can tell you that what I do love, part of the reason why there is a varied body of work on my resume is because I don't like to repeat myself as little as possible. Like there's similarities between equipment or story or whatever. There are overlaps, but I do love to basically reinvent the wheel as much as I can. And for me, that's exciting. I like being taken out of my comfort zone, and I like being able to be challenged by the material. So yes, I do have to rejig my brain. So I've gotten better as I get older and more experienced, I guess, about partitioning looks and feels and places. It used to be a case where if I was on a movie, I couldn't watch another movie. And there's a story I tell. I was doing Foxcatcher, and Foxcatcher was all mid lenses, and I went and saw Skyfall, and that my friend Roger shot, Roger Deakins, who everybody knows. It's a beautiful looking movie. And I got back to the set on Monday, and we're doing a wide shot, and the viewfinder asked for a 32, and my focus puller looked at me like, "What? You've never used the 32 before?" But because I'd absorbed Skyfall, I had kind of started to work in that language into my first decisions about trying to get lenses. So I quickly changed that back to, where it should have been. But I'm better now at trying to sort of partition my brain, my visual cortex, I guess it is, to work with the film that I'm doing at that point in time.
And never hurts to borrow from Roger Deakins if you're going to borrow an idea.
Well, it wouldn't have quite worked for Foxcatcher, but that was a different film. But yes, yeah, you're
right. And this film in particular with Dune, I know for Denis Villeneuve, it was such a passion project for him. He's wanted to make this since he was a teenager. He had this film in his mind. So what is it like coming on board a project where, the director has that insane passion for it, a very specific idea in his head? What was that like, trying to get on the same page and get into his vision for the movie?
Well, going back to the question you just asked, part of the visual change that I make on each picture is based primarily on the discussion with the director. So, I don't necessarily want Denis to be telling me what lenses he sees this being shot on, because that's not big picture, and he doesn't. He's fantastic like that. Like, he's very good at getting into the emotion, into the story, into having me explaining to me what it is about this story that he loves. The otherworldliness, the characters. Like, I think you feel like he was Paul Atreides when he first read this, and so I took that as being like he said himself, he's made this film for his 14-year-old self, and for me, then that really dictated who my North Star was, character-wise. And I was really just following the lead when it comes to Denis' direction and his vision. So, of course, I've got to kind of make it shootable and make it possible to shoot. But he as a director was instrumental in bringing this entire thing together and creating this world that I was really lucky to photograph.
When I was thinking about the photography in this movie, one of the main kind of images that keeps sticking out is that there's so much, there's so many shots of these sweeping landscapes of the desert. There's lots of in the daylight, in the desert, outdoors. What are the challenges of trying to shoot in that type of environment?
I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to the desert in the middle of the day, but it's all the challenges you can imagine. I mean, it's not cold. It can be really hot. I mean, thankfully, my crew and I were able to wear sort of appropriate clothing, but our poor actors at times had to wear these the still suits, which, despite looking amazing, I'm pretty positive weren't practical. You know what I mean? I don't think they had a self-cooling system in there. I don't know. I mean, maybe they did. But so for me, the biggest challenge, or for us as a crew, the biggest challenge was dealing with those with those all the elements effectively. But there's something about those elements that actually brings a lot to the picture as well. Like there's something where I recall there was a day the wind was picking up, and we were like, oh, this is not good. The wind's picking up. But actually, the visuals on those are better because suddenly you've got emotion with the weather. Mother Nature starts to give you something. Mother Nature starts to drive a point home. It's Mother Nature has an opinion in this film, and it's really, that goes back actually to Frank Herbert, who really wanted to make sure that this was a biological film involving the world that was being inhabited. And so we were very conscious to give Mother Nature her credit where credit was due.
Mm. And Mother Nature on this planet also has very large sandworms in it. And I would love, because there's a million shots I could talk about with you for this film, but I would love if you could just walk us through like that moment where Paul is confronted by the worm is such a, it's a classic epic shot. There's a reason they've used it in so much of the advertising, because it just speaks so loudly on camera. When you have to deal with something of that magnitude, how do you approach that scene?
There's a joke going around at all the Q&As that unfortunately we couldn't get the sandworm that we wanted, so we had to get one that was 10 times the size of a football field. It's a terrible joke because people want to know about the VFX versus in-camera shooting, and clearly, obviously, the sandworm is real because that's what. No, I'm kidding. It's obviously a visual effect. So the biggest thing that we had, biggest problem that I had, is that I have never seen a sandworm before in the flesh. So I don't know how to visualize it, how to lens it. I've never shot a sandworm before. So that was in correlation with the previs, with Denis, with Paul, our VFX supervisor, and Patrice, who did all the artwork. So together, referencing those the artwork and trying to pre-visualize what this thing is and how big this thing is. I mean, that's tough. I found it tricky because I tend to base myself in a form of reality when I photograph things. But it's like, again, when you shoot a Star Destroyer or a Death Star, like I've never seen a Death Star in the flesh, so I don't know exactly how big it is, but I guess I can guess, I can imagine.
Yeah. Well, the flip side of that is that you have, there's all these really epic wide shots outdoors, but a lot of your interior scenes are really beautiful, intimate close-ups of the characters. Was there a conscious decision there to sort of, play with contrast there between wide shots and close-ups?
It was a very deliberate. Thing to make sure that we gave our actors their close-ups. I mean, it's not because they asked for it, because their actors are the finest actors in the world that just do their thing. But for us, we knew that to fully ram home the point of the film and to tell the drama, that we needed to be in close to our actors, and I find that going from a close-up to an extreme wide is fantastic. There are times during the first sandworm scene, the ornithopter and Gurney and Paul, that we went from close to wide, and then there was a couple of times we went even more wide. Like, it was kind of fun that we had somewhere to go. We went wide to see this massive sandcrawler and this massive carryall, but then we went even wider to see this tiny little ornithopter, which we know how big it is because we've seen a person next to it. And then next to it, we see a massive sandcrawler. And then beyond that, there's a massive worm. So I love playing with scale in films. I love seeing and feeling scale. And then not just by claiming that it's large, but by actually getting the audience to believe through our magic tricks of lensing that it is as big as it is. It feels as big as it is.
Hmm. I really liked the way that light is used in the interiors. Many of the rooms are sort of like cut through with a big beam of light somewhere or through a grid. Um, where did that come from? Was that like originally in the set design, or was that something you wanted to specifically incorporate?
I mean, what I love about working with Patrice Vermette, who is our production designer, is he doesn't design for aesthetics. That's not his base. He is a true designer that designs for character, and everything that he has and does, there is a reason for it. So he knows how harsh the winds of Arrakis are, that 700-800 miles an hour. He to do that to we'd never build a straight structure, would you? You build angled structures for the wind and everything to go up like a car or something. So the other thing is that in Arrakis, the sun is not something you want to bathe in. It's not a thing that you go and sit by the pool and relax. It's a harsh element. So the question that we had was, well, how do we get light inside this massive tavern or massive cavern called the Atreides residence? And so Patrice's solution, and this is where I give him full credit conceptually, because his idea was effectively there's just light wells. These are just light wells, not just light wells, but these are very deep light wells that will allow the light to come down them, but not allow sun to hit inside. So you're never walking through patches of sun. So if the challenge for me technically was to create soft light inside the residence, but poorly soft light in the residence, which normally it's very easy to create shafts of light. That's we've done that throughout the ages of filmmaking. But making it soft enough that it creates a shadow and a line, but without being sharp. So that was the balance. It needed to be soft light inside the residence, but it needed to be direct light, which any cinematographer that puts diffusion in front of a window or knows what happens with that, just light blooms. So that was the challenge that we struck between production design, lighting, and then post-production.
And I would love to talk about the overall look too, because I believe I heard that you did a sort of mashup of filming on digital, transferring to 35 millimeter, and the movie just has a very unique look overall to it, I think, because of that. What led to that decision?
When we did the original tests, we tested film and digital. Denis and I spoke at length about what this film was. Was it shot on film? Was it shot on digital? And we'd both done both. So we had our experience behind us to make a decision. And he and I both quietly went, we're going to shoot on film. This is going to be a film, because this is what we know as being a film. And of course, you need to do testing, because also we need to have evidence to say to our amazing producers at Legendary, hey, listen, this is why film's better. We didn't just be arrogant enough to go, this is the way it is. So we tested. We went down to the desert, down south Los Angeles, past Salton Sea, and also the Sepulveda Dam, which had a bit of a kind of a similar sort of aesthetic to the architecture of the film. And we shot film, digital, and we got the results back, and we looked at the digital and went, oh, it looks good. Just a little too sharp. We looked at the film and went, oh, it's good, but it's not quite what we imagined. It's not this film. This is a different film. So we knew that it was leaning more towards digital, but it wasn't quite, it needed to have something to it. Digital, again, we don't want to debate this because there's many people who have different debates about format, but digital can sometimes be a little bit emotionless on its surface, and so by going back to film, which is an analog piece of analog tool, we managed to get some of the analogness back into a digital image. And we tested a number of things. The question came, of course, from everybody, ourselves included, well, can't we just add grain? Can't we just do this in post? We did some tests, and the point is, it's not about grain. It's not about resolution loss. It's not about, there's something to it that people have tried to explain through their scientific equations and their, I've had many discussions about what it is, and I don't think anybody's put a finger on it yet. There's something about film that many filmmakers will agree exists, and we tried to imbue our film with a little bit of that, with some of that, be it have the digital look, or not digital look, but the digital acquisition that we seem to prefer at the beginning.
Mm. With that in mind, do you sort of gravitate towards, when a new piece of technology comes out, because you work in a lot of, or you have worked in a lot of very big budget films across different types of filmmaking. Are you eager to try out new cameras, new pieces of technology, or do you have your sort of go-tos that you like to use?
One of the things that keeps me going is the fact that there are new bits of kit to play with. I mean, I'm technically not very good. I mean, I don't know how to work out my iPhone, let alone, like the technicals behind a camera. And I deliberately stay ignorant of the technical, because I think all of us have a capacity in our brains. And so if I know too much about something, then maybe something disappears out of my brain that should be there, like a feeling or an emotion. So I try not to know too much about stuff, but I do. One of the things that keeps me going in this industry is learning about new bits of kit, new ways of filming, new things. Filmmaking is a whole. If you're going to be a little bit kind of a little bit negative about filmmaking can be a whole series of roadblocks. Everything. There is so many things standing in your way to be getting a performance, a thing. It's, is the sun covered by cloud? Is there floods that day? Is the whatever? There's so many obstacles and roadblocks to getting footage. So the least amount of roadblocks, or the equipment that I can use to stop those roadblocks, I feel is a really worthwhile cause to test and promote or push or play with, just to allow the director and the actors the most amount of time on a shoot day to be performing and to be playing with the scene.
Yeah. Well, going back to my first question before I have to let you go, because I was, thinking about your body of work. We're here, you're an Oscar nominee for this movie. You have the Batman releasing. You have a whole list of great directors that you have worked with. Is there a genre that you haven't tackled yet that you're really dying to, or perhaps a director that you're really eager to work with that you haven't checked off that box yet?
It's a good question, because when I take films, I generally take them if I can contribute something greater than the sum of my parts and my friend's part. Oh, that's a bit weird, but I'm saying? Like, I can contribute something that's kind of greater than me. I can introduce something that maybe nobody else could. So I like to think that I would like to think that I could tackle any genre, and I would like to think that I can do anything. But there are a few things that I haven't done that I would love to do. Like, I haven't done a musical. I've never done a musical. I did a musical number in Vice, which I don't think made the cut, but might have been in a deleted scene. Maybe it did actually, but it was the most fun. It was the most fun on that shoot. Was being a little crazy with the camera, being a little loose. Like just watching people sort of step out of an ordinary environment into the extraordinary, and I kind of like that. I think that this is the year for musicals and the awards.
It really is, yeah.
And I didn't do any of them, so it's like I'm sitting on the sidelines, almost on the bench, eating my oranges, going, "Come on, I'd love to do a musical."
Well, I guess that just means you have to pitch a musical number for Dune Part 2 to Denis. I'm sure that was in his vision for.
It's funny you say that, actually, because then I won't. That's a bad rumor to start. But you're right. maybe it's a new Batman film.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you. I can't wait. Hopefully, I see a musical sequence in another film for you someday soon. Congratulations on your Oscar nomination, and thank you for talking with me. If everyone's out there watching, keep up to date with Gold Derby. There's plenty more interviews like this with other nominees. And Greg, thank you once again.
Thank you, man. Good to talk to you.